Alright, should be somewhere around live, somewhere close. So, this will be a video with lots of subjects in it, and we'll just go over all the ways in which Professor Dave cops out and, just doesn't play a fair game on the internet. He just goes out and picks on retards because he doesn't have the balls or the intellectual capacity to deal with real physics arguments, and there's a ton of them out there that only an extremely unreasonable person could say, "Oh, it's all settled science." And the first subject will be kinetic energy and the fact that it's pretty unsettled science. And so this goes back to the Steve Mould video, where he basically said the law of the lever doesn't work. So it's a profound statement, arguing against really, physics that should have been settled. If some physics was going to be settled, that should have been settled over thousands of years using balances and other mechanisms. It was, well demonstrated that the law of the lever is very reliable stuff. And your kinetic energy doesn't have anything to do with it, frankly. It doesn't have anything to do with rocket ships or ballistic pendulums or electric generators or electric drills or water hoses or anything else that allows energy to transform, from different object to object. And these people are just such despicable cowards, because they really won't take on any tough subject, because they'll be demonstrated to be, they'll take a side, and having to take a side they're not prepared to defend. Just that clear. So Steve Mould's video on levers, he was using levers as an excuse to, well, he was talking about Newton's cradles, and he used that as an excuse to get into levers. The basic premise was making an assertion that's pretty profound to state that the law of the lever doesn't actually work. He provided zero evidence. It was a flat earth video. The scientific experiment was so unscientific. And that should bother anyone who cares about science. And the fact that none of these talking science headers could show up and provide any clarity or, anything at all. Ironically, Steve Mould used a clip from Minute Physics in his video, basically proving that pulleys do conserve momentum, yet he's arguing that momentum isn't conserved in something like levers. That you literally can take a half mass going 1.4 and put it in one side, and that'll make a one mass going two mass going one velocity on the other side. That you'll make free momentum. That you'll increase the momentum of the system. What goes in and what comes out won't be the same momentum. And that should be obnoxious to anybody who cares about science and physics. It's so elemental and fundamental. But this is why they need to be forced to have this conversation, is because they have a bunch of descriptions of things that are just so wrong. From their silly orbiting atom bullshit to again, just making arguments that somehow it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast, which everybody can know can't happen. To the gravity argument, bent space, the nothing creates the something of real momentum. The real momentum has to be converted into something, and that's the funny part. They don't think heat is momentum, and yet when they talk about thermodynamics, well, they know that heat is momentum, that's what all the motion turns into, is heat, and that's why it becomes unusable. It is because heat is dispersive and hard to bottle. That's it. It's not that heat is any less real as momentum or energy. It's just harder to put in a bottle. That goes to photons, where they just really don't get the whole thing that the photons don't get. They don't have more and more energy. All they do is deliver their energy over a shorter period of time. And delivery matters. But it's not more energy. So every single concept has been destroyed by these weasels and cowards. And they should be willing to have their physics interrogated just like they interrogate other people's. So, the flat earthers they'll take on because they're, number one, retarded or insane, or they're trolls. So they'll waste their energy on trolls, retards, and lunatics. But they really won't discuss anything that has to do with physics. Evidence, experiments, and a sensible interpretation of those experiments. They just run. And so I've offered him thousands of dollars. He won't take the money. I asked him, name your fucking price. And he won't do it. All right, he gave me some $100,000 million price or something. And so, what else can you call that but just pathetic cowardice? You're getting paid to annihilate somebody challenging your pristine and full of integrity physics. Why the hell wouldn't you take the opportunity when he's offering to pay you to have the fun of mocking and ridiculing and somehow proving the person to be an imbecile or a liar or an idiot or a lunatic? Whatever one you wish to choose. It is just such bullshit. Oh, we actually have some comments. Joshua, something odd happened to 4 of the top most outspoken flat earth channels. Well, that's just too horrible, isn't it? I think whatever of Jerusalem is under distress, but he used to rip holes all through Professor Dave. I doubt he did any of that. Flat earth is fucking idiotic. If you're a flat earther, you're a fucking idiot. Yeah, you're crazy. You're not just an idiot, you're crazy and an idiot, or an idiot and that's crazy. Oh, fuck. I just, people are just so amazing. Alright, I'm impregnated with Sega A black holes in our present universe, giving birth to the universe. What? Okay, so I guess I just block you or something? Yes, I guess that's what I do. Yeah, fuck this. So thank you, human beings, for showing up and just proving some more that you are all motherfucking idiots. Yay! It's just so much fun on the internet. Oh, God damn. So that was a waste of time. Interactions with people. It's just so much fun. Anyway. Yeah, it's just this world is so fucked. These intellectuals are too cowardly to have a conversation, and the rest of the fucking morons are too insane. So it's just so bad. And yeah, that's it. It's just so fucking bad. My real point was Professor Dave is a fake. A fake what? He's a Wikipedia page reader. Okay, so he did go to college. He does know some things, all right. But what he knows, it's what Daddy told him. Okay, he doesn't have any imagination. He doesn't have any creativity. He doesn't have any understanding of a concept. So he can't invent anything or produce anything. All he can do is be a grammar school teacher. He doesn't have any other qualifications. But it's silly to say that he's a fake in the sense of any other sense than, oh yeah, he's fake in the sense that he's on YouTube to make goddamn money. He's exploiting science. He isn't a science lover or a devotee of science. He's just exploiting it for a nice big fat income and a nice lovely swimming pool. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with giving a fuck about the truth. The truth doesn't have anything to do with it. What can he exploit to satisfy an audience who will pay him to exploit things? To entertain them. Now you could certainly argue too. He's pretty good at writing a script and reading it, so you got to give him some credit. He's pretty good at spewing rhetoric in a quick and concise manner, but that's all it is spewed rhetoric. He's really good at calling people names, but that's it. Yeah, there's nothing. You watch an hour of Sabine Hassenfelder video and he's like Thunderfoot. He just keeps saying the same thing over and over again. Well, you pooped on science. You pooped on science. You said every scientific experiment was a waste of time. That's what you said. You did that. Yes, you did. You said everything was stupid. Everything is dumb. That's not exactly what happened. Okay, Sabine Hassenfelder's a fucking trolling douche. But, he's not doing anything different than exploiting an audience. Give the audience what they want, which is pretentious, arrogant, obnoxious, we scientists know what's going on. We're atheists, but we're really not atheists because we all want to go fuck a wormhole. It's just so bad. So fucking bad. Anyway, yeah, whatever. I don't even know what businessman means. So yeah, yeah, what? Wait. You get paid to say what people want to hear. Oh, okay. Yeah, what a great businessman you have to be to figure that out. Ugh. I don't think so. All right, so well, let's just start moving on to subjects, I guess. I'll leave that up for a little longer, and then we'll, every single one. So, maybe we'll start with the model of the atom, just because it's just so, it's one of these little elemental things. They already know what charges are. It's so obvious that the electrical monopoles, the electron and proton, are also the magnetic monopoles. What's also obvious to me, obviously, not obvious to you morons, is, that energy, people just get, they've used these stupid wrong impressions. So if you understood that all I have to do is vibrate an electron, let's say, to change what's reflecting off of it. So if you could understand that the faster I vibrate this pen, theoretically, if you could see the photons, the faster I vibrate it, the higher the frequency the photons will be reflecting. It's, it's just that train whistle thing. Okay, get it? It's just red shifting, blue shifting. And so if I can excite electrons or move them quickly, they're going to reflect the universe in a tighter frequency. So the light you see is often not new photons. So when something's hot, it doesn't have to emit photons. It's just taking the ones that are already hitting it, the infrared ones, and increasing, increasing, what do I want to say? They're making the frequency smaller. So the frequency is getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, the hotter it gets. So the photons coming off the sun are not the sun's photons. The sun isn't emitting photons, it's just reflecting them. And that's why the light pressure is so weak. That's why the light doesn't push the Earth away. I mean, it's an insignificant factor. I don't even think Newton put it into any of the gravitational equations. It was such a weak effect. The effect of the sun's radiation was so minuscule that it wasn't even in anybody's equations, because it's not new energy. It's exactly the same energy that was going to hit the Earth anyway. The stuff coming off the sun was going to hit us anyway, and the only thing that got changed was it was made into visible light instead of invisible light. And it's, frankly, in my opinion, obvious that that's how everything else works. That's how, induction works. A wire gets electricity in it. The atoms are doing this crap. And the faster they do that crap, and the slower they do that crap. Okay. But that's what's traveling, okay, is the fact that it's changed the signal. And that's it. And that's why you can tune it in and tune in the frequencies, because it's changing the frequency. And then the magnetic component is just the fact that it's charges. And the charges are just doing north-south things. So every atom is said to be, just about every atom in the periodic table as single atoms, is understood to be magnetic. That is, you can move it in a magnetic field. So the individual atoms are polarized. And the trick is some substance will allow you to line up all the poles, and some substances won't. They're automatically, once they're put in their positions, they stay in their positions, and so all the magnetic fields are pointing in different directions. So they can't become magnets because they can't rotate their poles. And that's the only difference between iron and aluminum, is that the aluminum doesn't allow the atoms to line up all their magnetic fields in the same direction. And the iron does. It can rotate its nucleus. And they can all be in the same plane and pointing in the same direction. All right. Yeah, nobody said anything new. Okay. All right. So let me get rid of this image and we'll draw some crap. So, as I pointed out, the Earth is getting heated by gravity. So this is, it would be an argument very interesting to see Professor Dave defend the uranium argument, heating the Earth, which is really idiotic, or the old heat argument, that somehow the Earth can't radiate heat efficiently, and so it's stuck inside the Earth for billions of years. Now, it's obvious that the motion is created by gravity, so the MV starts there, and as soon as it hits the surface, it starts dissipating. Okay, that is, it hits the surface and it breaks little pieces off, they tumble about. But the real trick is, just like with friction on the street, is it's turning into heat. It's vibrating the surface of the Earth. And then the weight itself of the material, just like me sitting in my chair, is constant. So I'm constantly pushing 100 joules into the damn Earth. A little less than that, but it doesn't matter. It's, you might as well call them watts because they're heat. Okay, it's just heat. Heat. Pressure is heat when it's allowed to move matter. So when you have pressure and the matter is allowed to move in the pressure, that is, it can move between various pressures, it's going to be heat. Okay, and then it's going to become radiant heat, where it's just going to be some kind of form of interaction, okay, with the environment. And that has to be real heat. Those are new photons, so to speak. They can't be the old photons because they're created out of a new MV created. So they're new photons into the environment. They're not going to be just the reflected ones. I would argue they're coming off the sun. So the sun is also in the same thermodynamic condition the Earth is in. That is, the energy goes in, it's delayed a little bit, okay, and then comes back out. So there's a differential between what goes in and what comes out in any one moment because of the delay going through the sun. But it is constantly, radiating that energy. And the key is that it's also being bombarded by, energy constantly, photons, infrared photons especially, microwaves, all that kind of stuff. And because it is so hot, that is, the electrons are moving so quickly, they basically just boost the frequency of anything coming in. So if a low frequency photon goes into the sun, it's going to come reflecting coming out at a much higher frequency. So that's why the sun produces visible photons, because it's just converting, infrared into visible. And such. But that's all we do. We just reflect. Okay, so, I can't say that's all we do because obviously we have a metabolism, burning chemistry, creating our own heat. But I'm just saying a rock in space isn't doing anything except reflecting the universe theoretically. but as I just pointed out, everything that has a mass is going to generate some heat just from the environment. It's going to be at equilibrium with the space. The space is creating the source of the gravity. So the simple argument is the Earth is just a circular heat engine. Okay, it's just nothing. 100, let's say 50 Kelvin goes in, all right, and the fact is at this exact moment only 49 Kelvin comes out because it's delayed going through the Earth. But if I wait another second, all right, then that extra, the missing 1 Kelvin will leak out of the Earth. Okay, so it's just a matter of time waiting for it to leak out. And so it's a system that's constantly fueled, and it has this constant deficit in it. And so it's almost perfectly reasonable that this is how it would work. The universe is going to, anything I put in space, the universe is going to appear to be heading right for it. So anything that's going to hit that object is going to look like, oh, it's heading right for it. So it's going to create spherical pressure. You know, all of that makes sense. Well, you can't see that drawing, but you know, it's all, you know, you can't go into space without, you know, if you could see the photons hitting you, you would see that, hey, look, it looks like they're coming from every direction and hitting me equally. Obviously, every single point in space will have that impression that the universe is out to get it. Because it'll look like everybody's pointing their bullets right at me. But that's only because you only count the bullets that hit you. You don't count the ones that missed. Yeah. They're not part of your impression of your circumstance. All right, so, you know, I guess we'll do some kinetic energy, but I'm just saying you can understand this. It's a perfect explanation of gravity. Now, you know, the argument is that the drag argument destroys this. So even though this works perfectly, just like Feynman said, it works perfectly. But there's one problem. It doesn't work. Well, it actually does work because the drag thing was a fallacy. It was just something physicists say, just like Professor Dave, okay, or silly, whatever his name was. Yeah, the other guy with the lever experiment. I don't know why I can't remember names. Never could remember names. It's always a weakness of mine. Wow, that really doesn't erase. What's up with that? Turn the bottle this way, maybe it'll work better. Let that soak in a little. That's better. Steve Mould. Okay, so they just say stuff, you know, and they haven't really thought about it. And, you know, that's just terrible that they're physicists and they really don't do any thinking. All right, so I'll deal with the drag thing real quick because it's just so interesting that it's so obvious you can figure out why it's a bogus argument. So the premise is that, you know, you have this field of ultra mundane particles. Okay, so you have this field of BBs, is essentially what you're just arguing. And the idea is that they're constantly moving in the universe at the speed of light. Okay, that's basically Lesage or photiogravity. And that something in that field. Okay, so it would make sense that you could shadow something. So, you know, that's the argument. I could put two things in the field and you'd understand that the particles going this way can't get through object 1, so they can't get to object 2, so there's more pressure on this side than there is this side because this side has shadowed it, consumed it, delayed it. Alright, and so that's the explanation for gravity. Now, Newton liked the idea for a few years. Back in the 1600s, he signed Fatio's paper. Fatio was a great supporter of Newton. Fatio actually initiated the argument between Newton and Leibniz because Fatio made a public statement pointing out how the evidence is overwhelming that Newton has precedent on calculus. And then Leibniz had to respond to that, and in responding to that, he not only lied, but he insulted Newton and accused Newton of stealing his, and that's when the argument really took off. So it is funny that the guy is integral to a lot of stuff, but nobody knows his name. It's kind of funny. It's tragic and sad, actually, that everything is so unfair. Even scientists can't be fair to the guy who originated an idea. Now, it's not that, it's the kind of idea where I thought of it too. So, it's not exactly hard to draw this conclusion if you're going to try to figure out how gravity happens. All right, so anyway, the point is that yes, it works. Feynman concedes it works. It creates the inverse square law. It obeys all of the things you need to do. One of the side effects would be heat, which obviously I would argue is exactly what happens. But anyway, so the idea is that when you're not doing your gravity thing and you're just moving through space, say the Earth going around the sun in its orbit, that it would keep going into more force. So the force on this side, if you have a momentum in this direction, you'd plow into this extra force and it would destroy your momentum. But that's the catch. You can't plow into more force. You can only plow into force sooner. So if you understand that all this stuff is moving and heading right for you, okay, so all of these bits of force are going to hit the object. They're going to hit it. It has nothing to, there's no doubt that the object's going to get hit by the force, and all you're saying is I'm going to make it hit it sooner. Hitting it sooner won't change anything. It won't change the amount of force hitting. It won't change the interaction at all. And the fact is that all the stuff you're escaping, that is when you're going forward, you're moving ahead of the force pushing you, and you're moving into more force this way, well, all of that's going to catch up. So if I had one extra bit of force and it took out this first guy, right? So I have one extra soldier and he takes out this guy. Well, the fact is now I could have 9 soldiers on this side and I only have 8 on this side now. So I'm obviously can still have that one extra, right? It's still there. It's still in the field. I can't get rid of it. So I could go through this 9 to 8 exchange, this war, and I'm still going to end up with the one extra again. And then I can have another 9 and another 8, and it's going to be doing the same exact thing. So something moves through space by speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. I don't know the best way to draw that. But you can't change it. So once I add an extra bit of force, I have to add a bit of force from the other side to stop it. I can't stop it until I add a real extra piece of force. I can't plow into more force and somehow pretend that all the other forces are going to catch up and the balance is going to be exactly the same. I can't change how much, I use the example of buffaloes, but I can't change how many buffaloes are on this side and how many buffaloes are on that side. I can't make the buffaloes over here jump to this side, and I can't make the buffaloes over here jump to that side. I'm always stuck with the number that's there. And if I add one more on this side, it's permanent. He's going to keep pushing me until another buffalo shows up on the other side. I mean, if we assume the universe is equal from the two sides. And you can't fix that. So drag isn't a thing. Amazingly, drag isn't a thing. I mean, I've been spending 10 years trying to figure out a good explanation for why it's not a thing. And the answer was so simple. And that's the disappointing part, is these answers are so simple. It's so obvious that gravity creates heat. It's so obvious that the motion has to be converted into heat. That's their thermodynamic rules. That's it. They already concede that's what happens. That all motion gets converted into heat, ultimately. Now, I would argue that obviously the heat is converted back into motion again through gravity. It makes big things move again. So there is a way to take the dispersed force and have it regenerate useful motion. And it's constantly happening with gravity. Constantly. Yes, Steve Mould was the guy I was looking for. I mean, it's just such a profound... So let's just understand what Steve Mould was saying. Is that, I've shown levers. I mean, this is a real thing. It really does work. It's a perfect balance. So I could take 4, masses at one distance. Okay, that's one velocity. And then I could take a 1 mass at 4 distances, or 4 velocity. So 1 mass, 4 velocity. This thing will balance perfectly, even though their physics says this has 4 times the energy. So their physics says there's 4 times the energy on this side of the balance. So it oscillates in gravity. I can give it energy, and it will oscillate. The energy will stay in the system, and it'll go from one side to the other side. One side's moving with 4 times the kinetic energy that the other side is supposed to be moving with, which is just idiotic. So the argument was basically, the experiment proposed was just hitting things with a spaceship. Alright, and the simple argument was, what's your energy you can collect out of that event? And the simple argument is I could take a spaceship that's half the mass, okay, at twice the distance, and I have every expectation it's going to go twice the velocity. And Steve Mould's argument was, no, it won't. It'll only go 1.4. Now 1.4 really just means 0.4 more. So it'll only go 0.4 faster. So even though it's half the mass, it'll only go 0.4 faster. Not 0.5 or 0.6, 0.4, which is pathetic. Now, obviously, these experiments are supposed to be perfectly reversible. So the argument is he's saying that I can put a 1 mass going 1.4, okay, 1 times 1.4, and I can make the 2 mass go 1, times 1. Obviously 1.4 is less momentum than 2. So obviously I'd be creating free momentum if that were possible. And obviously the argument is not possible. And you can extend this to these much larger proportions, but we're really just back to 25 times the fuel, or work, or pressure, or weight, to equal 5 times the velocity. And it doesn't happen. It's just not the truth. And nobody should be propagandized into believing such crap. It's pathetic. And you can't pay them to explain why they have no physical evidence for this. Nothing even close. I mean, the Mythbusters crashed the cars, nothing even close. I mean, 100 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, only half, twice as much crushing for the 100-mile-an-hour car, nothing even indicating 3 times the crushing, nowhere close to 4 times the crushing, just about exactly twice the crushing. The ballistic pendulum, again, their theory says that the generators on Niagara Falls, that all I have to do is make them spin twice as fast, and I can make 4 times the electricity. And if I can make them spin 3 times as fast, I can make 9 times the electricity. It's wrong, it doesn't happen, and it's idiotic. And then I used the perfect example of, what do you think Professor Dave's explanation is going to be if I say, look, I have 3 arms. Okay, I throw 1 baseball. I'm in space, just floating. I throw 1 baseball, I go 1v. I throw 2 baseballs, I go 2v. I throw 3 baseballs, I go 3v. Well, I'm going 3 times my velocity, and I only threw 3 baseballs. I only did 3 units of work. So I violated the kinetic energy theorem. Absolutely violated it. I didn't do 9 times the work. I didn't have to put 9 times the fuel in. I didn't have to have 9 arms. So clearly the theory doesn't work. And these cowards won't allow these arguments to be made. They don't feel obligated to answer these questions. How come there's 0 evidence for this? 0. Nothing. In 350 years, the theory says this happens. And it always happens. It has to happen. It's a law. And yet it never happens. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. Because they don't understand energy at all. Newton had it right. Descartes had it right. You have to conserve it. Okay? You can't exponentially, you can't quadratically create free energy merely by moving something faster, a lighter thing faster. You can't generate energy that way. Levers don't make energy, okay? They just convert it. They convert. This is all you can do in the universe. You can take a big mass, okay, and a small v, and you can convert it, okay, into a big V and a small mass. That's what the universe does constantly. Now let Professor Dave dispute that. That's all that ever happens. Nothing else happens. There's no squaring anything. The V's aren't squared. None of that crap happens. It's not big M, little V squared times V squared, little m. No, that's not what's real. This is the only thing that's real. It's the only thing that takes place. The spaceship proves it. The person in space proves it. The Gravity movie with the one with this, fire extinguisher proves it. And here I am having to make these videos. And none of these scientists will defend their science. This is core to their science. The kinetic energy theory is core. This is a core premise, axiom, description of reality, and it's completely wrong. Their theory of gravity bent space. It makes free momentum in the universe, and yet they think the universe has an entropy problem. The universe is going to run out of energy, even though their gravity theory says, well, we can make free momentum. Just turn the gravity machine on, and things start moving and crashing into planets. Where's our energy problem? Can't you just recognize how bad this is? That these cowards won't answer any of these points, ever. You can't pay them to do it. Again, I offered Veritasium $4,000. After Thunderfoot, $4,000. I offered Joe Rogan $4,000 just to play a 5-minute video on their channel. Give me 5 minutes to plead with your audience that they shouldn't be duped by these Wikipedia readers. These add no value. Add no value whatsoever. Just dupe an ignorant public into thinking they are smart when they haven't done any real thinking. They haven't spent any time examining their own flat-headed theory. No time at all. I mean, it doesn't take very long to figure out, well, bent space isn't an answer. You might as well just call it invisible man. It's no better than just saying invisible man because it has no source of energy. It doesn't have any pushers. It doesn't have any springs. It doesn't have any mechanism to give things energy. And yet it gives them energy. Oh, dear. Some anti-Semitical type has to chime in. What is it with you people? Every culture has lots of eccentricities, stuff you can mock and laugh at, and ridicule. But this idea that any of it's racial is just retarded. That anybody is born Jewish, or born Italian, or born it just isn't. It isn't a genetic thing. Okay, you're raised to be culturally retarded. Let's just say they're all culturally retarded, frankly. I had a great benefit in my life in that my family didn't give a you just never even heard about it, frankly. I didn't hear much, let's just say that. It wasn't until I was a teenager that my father pointed out something about how we're related to the first white child born in Rhode Island or some other kind of crapola. So we were Mayflower types. But I grew up having no ethnic sensibility. I mean, I was like all American in the sense that I had no sense of whether I'm German or English or Romanian or whatever the fuck I would have been. I just couldn't have cared less. I don't know. So now more than one person is using kind of racial slurs. Is this a clever thing? I don't know what Professor Dave is. I don't know. Is he Jewish? Do you know this for a fact? He sort of looks Lebanese or something, but whatever. Who the hell knows? I mean, it seems Italian in the sense that he teaches Italian. So I don't know where you're going with this crap. It's just so pathetic, you know. I just don't get people. I just don't get people at all. This is just such a pathetic little whine. Oh, the Jews are coming. The Jews are coming. I mean, I have no empathy with Israel, the creation of the Israeli state. I know the whole promised land crap. Nobody should have a religious state. That's just idiotic. Why America supports the creation of a religious state is just stupid. So I don't got any empathy with any of that crap. But I also have no empathy with some notion, that even that there's anything about Jewish culture that's all that frightening. Yes, they're a little bit clubby. Okay, they like to take care of their own, all that kind of shit. But so does everybody else. Yeah, I know. What you're telling me, you're just playing. You're playing with what? You're play acting bigotry? Oh, yeah, that's such a fun game to play. Let's pretend we're bigots. You know, that'll make it's so entertaining to pretend you're bigots. You're going to rationalize your retarded behavior. Oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. Of course. I mean, I guess it makes sense that you're going to rationalize really bad behavior. And it's just really bad behavior. It's just really bad behavior. Oh, sorry. Needed a new battery. Oh. I don't have any slaves to do my bidding. It would be nice to have people. Yeah. Get me a cup of coffee, asshole. Yeah. Shit. Alright. See if that's better. See if I can absorb some nicotine. Alright. Let's see. Wasn't the state of Israel in response to World War II? Well, they'd already started the colony, okay, long before World War II. So there was already Jews who were trying to do the promised land thing. And they just took that colony and endorsed it as a state. But I'm just saying the whole premise was really, oh, why don't you try to start World War III? You know, in the sense that, do you really think this Jew-Arab thing was going to work? And of course it wasn't going to work. And then when they started bulldozing the Palestinians out of Israel, that was, sorry, that doesn't look good. Okay, let's take a bus going 5V and a half the mass going 10V in a system where you capture the energy. The higher the mass could be used to make extra energy. So go ahead and prove it. I'm just saying there's no evidence for it. I take a 5 mass and I move it 5V. So Professor Dave, please explain this. This experiment's been done hundreds of times, so we know this one's agreeable. Everybody agrees this is what happens. You have a 5 mass going 10. You add 5 mass really gracefully. Now you have a 10 mass going 5. You've conserved all of the momentum, but you've lost half the kinetic energy. Okay, and the point is they say, well, it deformed and it made sound and it vibrated and made heat. And the argument would be, how could it make heat? Or how could it have something else flying in some direction? Or how could it be vibrating the atmosphere if it has all of its momentum still? You have to use momentum to do those things. Just like you have to use momentum to knock down bowling pins. You can't knock down the pin and keep your momentum. You have to lose the same amount of momentum the pin gains. So how can I keep all of my momentum and move other stuff that's still going somewhere else? That's free energy. Can't do that. You can't make, like, say I have 100 watts of battery power and my wires get 100 watts hot. Well, then I can't run the computer, right? Because all the energy gets used heating the wires, right? So I mean, it's just, you can't have the same energy doing more than one thing. I mean, it continues to move in the universe, but I'm just saying, if it's launching objects in this direction, it can't be moving your cart in that direction. You can't do both things with the same momentum. I mean, that one's just such a no-brainer. So again, where's the coward, the pathetic Professor Dave, to explain it to us? Explain how it really works. You conserve all the momentum and you make joules and joules worth of heat. So that somehow makes sense. Your train is still going with the same momentum, yet you left behind a whole big pile of heat. I mean, they can't explain it, and that's why they keep running from me. Because they're just terrible cowards, and they know they just can't take a position here. There's no, what are you going to do? You're going to argue against the law of the lever. I mean, that would be stupid. But what's your choice? Conceding that kinetic energy doesn't apply in the most fundamental experiment you can describe? I create the cleanest experiment possible. There's a spacecraft and it's just going to shoot pellets as thrust. The only thing it can do is exchange the momentum. So it doesn't matter whether it shoots the pellets at 500 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour. It's just going to be the mass and the velocity. The kinetic energy won't mean a damn thing. The rocket will never get, the spacecraft will never get any of the kinetic energy of the exhaust. It can only get the momentum. It can only get the equal and opposite reaction to the momentum. I don't know what empirical limitations. Of course I don't think there's any limitations. I'm describing to you that the whole universe is really simple. It's just electrons, protons, two kinds of force, three kinds of interactions. Why the fuck would I say there's a limitation somewhere? I'm saying that model will explain everything, including your existence. It's just that it's really hard to synthesize your existence because it involves so many electrons and protons. But the rules are really simple. You're made out of dirt simple rules. There's only one universe, so that's another one. I'd love to hear Professor Dave make a counter argument. There's one universe. Charge. The charge universe. Electron, proton, the force, and the three interactions. And that's all there is. There's no other universe. Just force and two kinds of matter. Two kinds of force, two kinds of matter. That's it. That's all there is as physical objects of interest. Of relevance that do anything. That's it. There's no muons, no gluons, no puons, no antimatter, no positrons. Again, the evidence for the positron was so bad. The history was 4 people did the experiment, 3 people said, it's a proton going really fast. And one guy says positron. That's how bad it is, okay? It isn't great physics. It isn't great science. It wasn't like they had some decisive proof that was completely persuasive. They just chose to call it a positron instead of conceding, yeah, it's a pretty fast fucking proton. And then, I mean, the double slit, I did do his double slit video. And frankly, his double slit video wasn't as bad as most, but he didn't really say anything in the video. So frankly, he really just didn't get into any of the interpretations and all of the other horse shit. But again, this one is so easily dissected in hindsight. I mean, I'm sitting here saying, oh, fuck. It's just too bad Isaac Newton couldn't have lived another 40 years or something. And really, and it's too bad that the British government was so retarded in giving him some jackass job, monitoring the treasury. You take your greatest physicist and you give him some, you give him a Rubik's Cube or something and say, solve Rubik's Cubes for the next 30 years. Just waste your goddamn time playing video games or something. I'm not saying Newton didn't do anything useful at the Treasury. I'm just saying by comparison, it's just so insane to take one of your greatest scientific minds and devote him to some social engineering project. I mean, just too fucking stupid. So anyway, so Newton did these experiments. So again, they always say like Young invented fringes, and it's just such a pile of shit. So Newton did the single impediment and the single opening. Okay. Obviously, he did apertures all the time. This was his thing. He wrote a whole book called Optics. I mean, obviously, he beat the subject to absolute death. Oh, Gary, you got to quit doing that. Keep drawing things out of the image. All right. So he did the single opening, the aperture, bigger, smaller, and noticed exactly that these fringe patterns happen. Okay. And the logical deduction, right, from an aperture on a camera is, well, sure, the bigger the aperture, the more photons go through without interacting with the surfaces, and the smaller the aperture, the guaranteed that my frickin' light is going to hit the surfaces, right? And so the math for the slit is exactly this, right? The math isn't for, the single slit math. The single slit, they rely on Huygens, and Huygens has some kind of notion that it doubles up the wave. Like one side cancels the other, and you end up with two waves coming out, which you don't. They don't measure the center here and the center here. So none of that happens. If they did that, they'd probably start getting horny. But if they did that, they wouldn't be getting the story, okay? Because the fact is this is what works. This distance, okay? The distance between the two surfaces. These are the two sources. These are the two places you draw your vectors from. Obviously, these are the two places that something's happening, the surfaces. And then it's made insanely obvious, right, when Newton does the single impediment, the hair. And he ends up with the same pattern. Now, the single maxima in the middle isn't as bright, because obviously I'm blocking a lot of the light going perfectly straight right through the middle. I'm blocking it. So all I'm having, essentially, is fringe light. Most of the light is getting blocked, and the only light I'm getting is this percentage that goes near this surface and the percentage that goes near this surface. Now, obviously, I use a very bright light with broadcasting it. I'm going to, wash out my pattern quite a bit. But these are where the fringes are happening, on the surfaces. So again, the math is exactly the same. It's saying what's the distance between the two surfaces. Obviously, there's no waves here. This isn't a water wave circumstance. It's not the same thing at all. These are the point sources. And then the double slit, if you don't cheat entirely, okay, and pretend, we only know how to make infinitesimally small slits. So what they do is they destroy the experiment by saying, let's make the slit opening so narrow that a photon can't even get through, right? It's less than the polarization of a photon. That's what they do. They do it on purpose. They say, let's make it smaller than 500 nanometers. So a single photon can't even get through it, theoretically. So it's so tiny that guess what you're doing? You're just saying, I'm going to move these two surfaces so close together that they might as well be exactly the same location in space. I can't draw a triangle from the two surfaces. Now, if you open the pattern, you open the slits, it works perfect. You get a ton of pattern, you get all kinds of stuff happening, and you get the classic double slit pattern, which is the little dots and the envelope pattern. So you have two patterns. And it's so obvious that one pattern, the big giant pattern, is being created by the smallest distance between two surfaces. And the small pattern is obviously being created by this giant distance you've created between this surface and this one. So if you do the math from here to here, there's a whole bunch of locations where there's a wavelength of difference because there's a whole bunch of wavelengths in this distance. But it's a fixed amount. You count how many wavelengths are in this distance, you know exactly how many of those nodes you're going to have on the whole pattern. It tells you the answer right there. I just take that distance divided by the wavelength of light, and I know exactly how many dots I'm going to get going this way, and then I just double it for the dots going this way. All of those things are easily deduced. I don't need Young's experiment. I can just deduce it from Newton's by just putting the pieces together. And what have I changed when I take this impediment and put it inside of this opening? Well, I've created a wider distance between two surfaces. That's what I've done. But clearly it's just broken photons, and then you have a 50-50 chance of putting them back in phase. That's it. There's no interference. There's no superposition. There's no Heisenberg crapola. There's no mystery. It's a simple mechanical process. You're mechanically breaking photons and then remaking them again out of pieces from different sources. And polarization films do the same thing. The film doesn't absorb any of the light. It doesn't get hot. Okay? So the photons are going through, and all you're doing is breaking their phase by putting them through different layers. So that's another thing they don't even tell you, is that, optical polarizing films, you can do it with actual bars, but the fact is the films that actually work so well are actually just layers. So you have one layer of plastic, and then you put another layer on top as bars. So some of the photons go through two layers, and each layer they go through creates a phase shift. That is, it slows the light down, right? So you've changed the phase again. So all you're doing is taking perfectly, photons that would hit the surface in sequence, and you're breaking the sequence because now you're putting them out of order. And the fact is you can slip another polarizing film in and put them right back in order again, some percentage of them. I mean, it all fits. This nice, simple mechanical theory works. It explains it, and there's no woo at all. You don't have to believe in a single bit of wooey, hyperspace, bent, warpy, nothing. No woo, no warp, no distort, no pervert. And it's just amazing that this argument won't be addressed by physics. They won't pay any attention to these perfectly valid arguments that these simple theories work better than their theories. They're more complete, and they're a million times simpler. Fact and such. We'll put ugly back on again. Well, I shouldn't say ugly. That would be cruel. So it is just so funny. Like I said, I'm willing to pay him, right? I'm willing to even open up to my channel and say, how much do we have to pay you? It's okay. I'll raise the money. How much does it take to get you to respond to some of these arguments? Any of these arguments, frankly. Even just one of these arguments. How much does it take? Coward. See, I mean, the other people have to defend themselves because all they have is their audience. Okay, and when they get attacked, they have to defend themselves. But these people don't have to defend themselves because they're immune to these outside voices. So the big loud guy can mock the retards, but the poor little retards can't fight back because they don't have the audience to force this guy to be dragged to the table and humiliated properly. It's just such a... I mean, the world's unfair. Okay, yeah. And we're supposed to be using our intelligence to make it fair. and nobody seems terribly interested in doing anything like that. And that's really tragic also. I mean, the fact that there's no place to go on the internet to debate these elemental physical notions is disgraceful, because the only places that exist will kick you off. I got kicked off of Wikipedia, not because I tried to edit a page. I went to the most, just the suggestion box, just the barely even, it's not even another alternative proposal, page. It was before even that, and they kicked me out. Because they're basically saying, you can't challenge our physics. You can't oblige us to explain why you're wrong. No, we don't have to do that. We just print what the authorities tell us to, and that's it. There's no other standard. And that's pathetic. All right, let's see. Because of how much time has passed since the early discussions of elemental physics. But look, the catch is they were discussions in an experimental vacuum. There was no scientific process yet. There really wasn't standards. People were doing all kinds of hokey free energy experiments, saying all kinds of shit that wasn't true. So it was such a dirty environment. We have a capacity to have a much cleaner environment now, and now is the time to have the discussions. I don't think people ever question anything. That's the whole problem. How did religion get off the ground? Because people don't question anything. They just say, well, medicine man says so. The chief says so. Fuck you, you're dead if you don't believe it. I mean, look, most of the religions, Christianity wouldn't be a thing if it wasn't for the fact that it went around the world and said, do you believe in this book? And if you didn't say yes, they killed you. I mean, it's really that overt. What do you think theory of everything? Oh, black, white. You really can't do English, right? I mean, I'm sorry, there's not much point. What do you think theory of everything? That's not a sentence, it's not a question, it's just not anything. And I don't know how I couldn't have made it already quite explicit that I already have pointed out the only things moving by rules in the universe are electrons and protons and the force that's pushing them around. That's already the theory of everything, asshole. There's no other thing happening. It's just electrons and protons being pushed around by a force. There's nothing else. Everything else is just a manifestation of that. And when you put gazillions of these electrons and protons together and have them manipulating each other's fields and changing how they move and oscillate and whatnot, yeah, you have a human being. But, I can't show you that diagram. I can't zoom in because we don't have a camera that can do that. But that's all that's happening. You zoom in, and the only thing that's really going to be moving by laws are the electrons and protons. You can't push on an atom. Atoms can't do anything. Atoms are obedient to their structure. The electrons and protons decide what the atom does. Ah, that was good. All right, so I might as well draw an atom. Yeah. Because, this is just another where they've always had choices and they choose badly. They just always pick the wrong answer. And it's just tragic and sad and pathetic and all that kind of stuff. So, Rutherford, who did the discovery of the small nucleus, and again, and the idea of how small it is really based on, a kind of experimental ignorance. All right, so I'll first point out, let's say I draw it wrong. Yeah. It's just, I'll try to make it right just because it makes the point better to do it correctly. So they have a thing called the strong force in physics, and it's just this silly idea that there's some magical force that shows up, okay, that allows two protons to get very close together. So protons repel each other strongly. So my point is they're actually shooting force at each other, and it's a pushing force. And so that's why they push away. It's because they're shooting a pushing force at each other. And the trick is that they already know by Maxwell's description of charge that the simple solution to get two protons close together is just stick an electron between them. Okay, it's like the magnet thing. If I could make magnetic monopoles, I could create a little north pole, and I had two little south poles, obviously this would work. Okay, these are going to be the wrong colors, but who cares? So I want to get two south poles really close to each other. All I do is stick the north pole in there, right? And the electrical model, yeah, I can just, I want to get two positive charges close together. I just stick the negative charge in between. Solved. And the trick would be that if I hit this with a force and kicked it out quickly, which is easy to do in the sense that the faster I move it out of the field, it's just like gravity. I move it quickly, there's almost no pressure. Almost none. If you hit the moon really fast, you'll kick it out of gravity and it'll take very little energy per the gigantic mass that you're moving. Because you're moving faster than the force can create a compensating reaction. The force can't react faster than you move the object. So it's easier to move. So the same is true for magnets. If I can give them a quick velocity, I'll negate the pressure holding them there, and they'll shoot out. So, but the simple argument is you can just understand, even without that advantage, efficiency advantage, you could understand that I could hit this with a force, and all of a sudden now the two protons are going to be incredibly close to each other. And it's an inverse square kind of argument. So the force between them would be insane in terms of the amount of pressure. And so, of course, they'd be flying apart at this incredible speed. So if right now I could just stop gravity, so there's no pressure pushing in on the Earth, all the masses lose their weight. They all become weightless. You can imagine that the pressure inside the center of the Earth would be ginormous compared to that zero pressure, and the whole thing would explode profoundly. And it's the same circumstance. So it's not like there's a strong force besides the charge force. You've put two charges really close. If I kick out the electron, the two charges are going to go, I can see you, and I hate you, and they're going to, repel vigorously. And that's how you create your nuclear reactions, in the sense that if you have a more complex atom, where you have a bunch of these electrons and protons, you can understand that some of them will be what is called a neutron, or that's how they're going to appear. And so if I hit a certain spot, I can make more or less energy pop out of the system. So if I knocked out this proton, you could see these two electrons would be very close, and this would fly out, and that would be your neutron flying out of your decay. So obviously it doesn't take much to break the system. You just have to hit the right particle with the right amount of energy, and the whole magnetic thing falls apart. And so that's the argument I'm making, is that atoms are not they're not swirly bits of stuff, moving around at preposterous speeds and all that kind of crap. They're magnetic. And you could simulate this with a piece of glass. I mean, I don't have to be, I shouldn't have to do it for you. You could just imagine it. But if I took magnets and put them between glass, and so they can't flip, right? Then I could take a bunch of north magnets and south magnets, and I could arrange them in such configurations where they would be stable. That, for example, I could have a south magnet and I could have north magnets around it. And the fact is none of these north magnets can get closer to the south magnet, because they'll have to get closer to the repelling north, you see. And you could just create a balanced system where they'll all just stay in that configuration, because nothing can really do anything without having a consequential pressure applied to prevent it from happening. You could almost call it an eddy current in electricity or something. It's just this thing that's going to be created circumstantially where you're just prevented from going anywhere. And it's like the proton can't, it can't move in any one direction because the other objects are pulling on it. So it's stuck. And so you can understand you can have this balanced system. And obviously this is what, when you have a shared electron, it's literally shared. Okay, the other atom, okay, is sharing the electron. Okay, there's no sharing something orbiting that's going around here and around here and around here. None of that makes any sense. I mean, so that one I knew when I was a kid. I mean, as soon as they said that this thing is, when two atoms are joining, that the shared electron is orbiting around both nucleuses. And you said, how does that hold an atom together? Because when the electron is way over here, there's no reason for this proton or these electrons to hang around. They're going to say, screw this, I'm going home. So it just doesn't make any sense. And then just controlling the speed, we know how delicate orbits are. There's no way you could control the speed of this electron and have it go in these orbits. It would have to, it's such a delicate circumstance. There's no way you could have the proper velocities, especially when the atoms are getting closer and closer together. The speed would have to change based on how close or how far away they are. So there'd have to be something that slowed down the electron. There's nothing there to slow it down. There's no way that's going to happen. So it made no sense at all. This makes profound sense. Okay, that's the shared electron. It's profoundly sensible. And so I don't know why they chose this silly model when this magnetic model works just fine. And you got to understand that the real space has a bunch of, at any one moment there's more pressure going this way than this way. So everything's jostling. So you got to understand that's the other factor here, is that everything's jostling in their positions. Nothing's staying exactly still. Everything's getting jostled about. And so that's why it can't just collapse. Is because the force is pulling things together. The absence of push, isn't strong enough to deal with the fact that everything's always moving sideways. So I took two magnets. They're very strong if I hold them steady. But if I move them, the force between them is less, because I'm actually missing the force. I'm not getting it all anymore, because it is kind of line of sight. The two magnets have to see each other. It really is a line of sight force. All right. Let's see, I don't understand fuck all, but love listening to you talk. Well, whatever. I don't know what to make out of that one either. What do you think? Okay, that's the theory of everything thing. Yes, so the chatters are, as usual, you're really, you're just not very helpful. This is such a arduous task, and unfortunately the general public is just not equipped, and I just don't have enough physicists in my audience to compensate. And that's just the tragedy of, again, being trying to interact in our closed civilization, where you have to be a millionaire or you have to be some other kind of bullshit to have the right to speak, to have any real right to speak. And it just plain sucks. And it's, depressing and tragic. And unfortunately, regular people just couldn't give a shit. They don't mind living in a shitiverse, and just proving that they're not very bright. But whatever, so what are you gonna do? I can only do my part. I mean, I'm trying to do it honorably and fairly. I mean, I do have a bit of a potty mouth, and I do get too angry and all that kind of stuff. But I'd argue I sort of have a right to be that kind of person, because, like a caged panther, I've spent a long time in my cage, and I'm pissed. Let's see, I got a YouTube strike on my channel for speaking in front of a camera. Okay, well, I don't know what you said exactly, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I haven't gotten a strike in a while. They're always, making my videos unacceptable to the young people. So they're always age restricting videos. So it's okay to pervert minds with the tripe on Wikipedia, but you can't speak much truth to youth without being accused of being some kind of terrorist. This really is such a shitty society. God damn. You would think with the internet you would be able to communicate ideas with others. One of the most useful tools ever invented. Yes, it is incredible, right? I marvel at just how disappointing it all has become. I mean, look at the commercials on YouTube. Have you seen these commercials? It's all about poo and pink salt and, I mean, overtly racial stuff where, like, some black guy is, bitching that the whitey's trying to kill us all by saying we have diabetes. I mean, it's just amazing. So I don't know what that means. Slop. Oh, slop. I'm just saying, obviously it's lowest common denominator audience, right? The ads are a reflection of the audience. So obviously intelligent ads don't work because intelligent people couldn't give a shit, right? They're not going to buy something because of a commercial. So all you have is dumb and dumber to make your commercials for. And it appears that even dumb, won't really buy it because you say so. And so it takes dumber. So your commercials have to be for the dumbest people on the planet. I mean, people who are going to take pooing advice, from the internet. And they can't, and it's not like they delicately talk about the subject of defecation. They talk about it in real stinky poo, smeary ways that are like childish, so fucking childish, like a way a 9-year-old would talk about poo. And that's the amazing part, right? That they're designing commercials for 9-year-olds, for people with a mentality of a 9-year-old. I mean, the impotency ones too are just so hilarious. They have some AI voice, with a fake person. I can't get it, and it's a woman talking. I can't get it up. You're like, why? I expect you can't get it up because you don't have a penis, retard. I mean, just, it's so vulgar. It's so disgusting. And it's like, people think I'm disgusting? Watch a YouTube commercial. I mean, I am, Snow White or whatever. I'm so pure and delicate and sensitive compared to a YouTube commercial. Oh, the St. Jude ones are just so hideous. God damn. We torture children. We do experiments on them. And yes, some of it works. Some of it doesn't work. We try all kinds of shit. We, piss into the, bag of stuff and shoot the piss into them do whatever we can to torture them before they're dead to see if we can learn something. And then if we learn something, we can sell it. Isn't it a great scheme? We get free torture victims. We get parents to bring their children to be tortured by us by experimentation. Yes, isn't it fun? I mean, it's so disgusting. It just amazes me. See, that's one of the things again. Who but the most depraved morons on earth could sit there and watch some commercial and want to hear that? So like talk radio does this, right? I know somebody plays the right-wing talk radio shows, and all the commercials are about cancer. Because the audience is all a bunch of old morons going, "Go get them niggers" and shit. They're a bunch of morons, right? And every single commercial is something about cancer. Who could listen to that? Who could listen to a program and keep being reminded, "You're going to get cancer, you're 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 going to get fucking cancer"? Who the fuck could do that but a complete imbecile? I mean, it's just, it's almost like you don't have to say, "Hey, it's, Trumper TV." And you're just saying, this is the audience? I mean, you're just saying, we don't even have to mock Trump for any other thing than the fact that the people who believe in Trump listen to cancer commercials all day. I mean, shit. You've already defeated them. Well, and buy gold. Buy gold and get cancer. Gold will cure your cancer. I'm sure of it. Dr. Something or something probably has a clinic somewhere where he actually shoots people up with gold. I'm sure there must be such a place. I mean, and that's the other thing. All of these cancer things are all these rickety commercial businesses just making loads and loads of money, giving people false hope. It seems like all the problems with physics, there's no way it's possible for any of it to not be investigated by others. It's just amazing. Again, I'm just sitting here in total amazement that some of this audience is not idiotic. Okay, some people have listened to my videos that aren't idiots. And I'm just saying, how could they not be compelled to say, well, we ought to shore that up? You mean we've never dropped 1 pound 4 feet and 4 pounds 1 foot? Well, we should do that experiment. Maybe we should see, on a scale. Where the hell's my scale? Oh, it was here the other day. Hello, Mr. Scale. Okay. Don't see it. Well, anyway, just turn the scale sideways. Turn the scale sideways. And then you push something into it, and it reads a weight. And there's actually a weight, a speed, that I could make an elephant go, and it would read the elephant's weight. And then I could have a mouse go the same speed, and it would read mouse weight. There's actually, that speed exists, and physics hasn't even investigated that. I mean, you're just, what? This is physics, and they haven't done any of these experiments. None. It took Mythbusters to crash the cars. No, they don't do anything. They don't do any experiments. They sit there and videotape exploding watermelons with high-speed cameras. They don't do any real science experiments. Let's see. Dave talks about other interpretations of the double slit experiment in his Quantum Mechanics is Stupid video. Let's see. At 2618. Okay, well, I'll try to find Quantum Mechanics is Stupid video. I didn't think he had one of those. I'm just going with his double slit experiment was just, it's the same old jargon about what happens that doesn't happen, okay? The simple truth is if you open the two slit experiment, you get a decisive pattern, a pattern that tells you the whole story. because there's two patterns. And all you have to do is say, why are there two patterns? Well, because there's four sources. That's why there's two patterns. There's four surfaces. It's not the double slit experiment. It's the four surface experiment. Yeah, well, you call it mysticism. Yeah, it's just religion, frankly. It's dogmatic statements about reality based on no evidence. I mean, the evidence really doesn't exist. And again, you can see it in their distortion, right? I mean, the muon experiment with the 400 layers of bricks. Well, we simulated the atmosphere with 16 tons of lead brick. Bullshit like that. And then Stern-Gerlach is such a classic example. Silver atoms. They're shooting silver atoms, and then they're telling me they're detecting electron spin. They're detecting the momentum of a spinning electron with silver atoms. I mean, it's, what the fuck are you talking about? No, you're not. That's not how it works, Dumbo. I mean, they've been drawing that silly diagram of a photon with the silly waves going both ways. And they'll never even tell you, well, are there 3 waves or 6 waves? I mean, how many waves are in the wave thingy? They don't even explore that question. There's just we don't even go there at all. And then they'll never draw that image and then say, well, this is the polarization, right? Because they got the polarization, but they don't explain, well, how high is the polarization? Is the polarization like with all other radiation, photonic radiation? The polarization is proportional to the frequency. So the smaller the frequency, the smaller the polarization. They don't even say things like that. Obvious things. So what are you really detecting in an experiment? Are you really detecting the frequency, or are you detecting the change in the polarization? Because both are changing. When you change the frequency, you change the thickness of the polarization. Do they know? No. They're just telling you we're detecting frequency. Well, maybe you're just detecting polarization. But the other interpretations, right, are they go from horrible to worse, right? I mean, Copenhagen is horrible, but the other ones are even more horrible. Pilot wave? What the fuck? What the hell is this? A little particle goes ahead of the wave and, tells it which way to go. What the hell? Does that make any sense? No, of course it doesn't make any sense. And then multiverses? I mean, I don't even want to... Again, it's beneath my dignity to have to talk about the 4-headed Holy Ghost with horns. I mean, they're just adding, unicorn Holy Ghost. It's a Holy Ghost with a unicorn horn. I mean, it's just, it's just the worst possible made-up pile of crap. And they get away with it. Like I said, Steve Mould made his ludicrous video where he did no clinically reasonable experiment, and he claims the law of the lever doesn't work. And I can make free momentum with a lever. That is, I can put a half mass going 0.4. I could put a 1 mass going 4, right? And make a 2 mass going 2. No, I can't. I think I said that wrong. Anyway, I could exaggerate, but I'm just saying a 1 mass going 1.4 velocity cannot possibly make a 1 mass go 2 velocity. Can't happen. It's free momentum. You can't make free momentum. And you got away with saying it. Not a single talking head physicist type person made any video saying, Steve, you can't do that. It violates the fundamental laws of physics. The law of the lever is a 2,000-year-old Archimedes theory that's rock solid. You just can't evade it. And in the same video, he proved that pulleys do conserve momentum and do violate kinetic energy. So in the very same video, it's just they never said those exact words, but that's exactly what he did. He mathematically proved that pulleys conserve momentum. At the same time, he said levers don't. And why is Weasel Dave not pointing out how that's not good science? It's rubbish science. Just absolute garbage. You have no evidence for the contention. You didn't do any experiments. You have no reason to sit there and challenge a fact that's demonstrated by every scale on the planet. Let's see, maybe the reason why Steve Mould hasn't been corrected is there's no accountability when it comes to... That's the whole point I'm making, is all they do is pick on retards. They're too cowardly to pick on somebody that might make an argument. And obviously in this fight between momentum and kinetic energy, they are fucked. Because you actually have to choose one. They both can't be realities. One of them's real and one of them is a nonsense. And I just say to you, frankly, we know which one is real. Momentum. Newton proved it. Descartes proved it. Everybody has proven it. Levers prove it. Water wheels prove it. Spaceships prove it. The ballistic pendulums prove it. Cars rolling on surfaces prove it. Things falling in gravity prove it. Momentum is real. Kinetic energy is a fable. No credible evidence backing it up. None. The whole Deschardelet fraud. Oh, smartest woman and the only woman in science. And she was so smart. She was tutored by a Leibnizian. She was sued by the guy because he basically said, you stole all my shit, bitch. This isn't great science, right? Is that a great scientific story? She gets tutored by a Leibnizian to think that there's something to this living force horse shit. So then she goes and, she is an admirer of Newton, but she's pointing out how there's this conflict between Newton's physics and Leibnizian physics. And it's this whole vis visa controversy. And then she provides this decisive piece of evidence where she dents clay with round objects, which isn't any different than basically saying here's a pointy arrow and a non-pointed arrow, and let's see which one goes in deeper with the same energy. It's no better than that. I mean, for a scientist, it's no better than that. It's easy to deduce. You can't discern the truth that way. You have to allow the round object to completely penetrate the clay to have a fair fight. But that's the history of mv squared. I mean, it's a horrible history. Leibniz just says so. The whole world says, fuck you, idiot. I mean, let's understand, Leibniz was buried a pauper. Nobody showed up. So even though he wrote a ton of science stuff, communicated with a ton of scientists, it seems everybody who knew him hated his fucking guts. They wouldn't even pay to bury him. So let's understand, he didn't survive his life with a great reputation. So no matter what the historians try to propagandize you into believing, he didn't win any of these arguments. He decisively lost them. And it wasn't until him and Newton were long dead that this bullshit was resurrected. And it was resurrected with carnival experiments. Not science experiments, carnival experiments. I mean, let's do the rolling thing again. I mean, could we get Professor Dave to tell Gary how he's an idiot and show Gary up? Show how draft science doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Could we get the brave scientist to show up and make an argument explaining how I'm not 100 motherfucking % right, okay, in this argument? I drew them too far away again. Okay. So I have two same masses, and one of them is going to go 1 velocity and one of them is going to go 2 velocity. And all I'm going to do is let the ground absorb their energy. So they're not going to travel through space. They're going to just roll on the ground. And the fact is the one going 1 velocity will stop here. Okay? And it'll take 1 unit of time. All right? So it'll roll, stop, 1 unit of time. Now we know there's a point where the 2 mass is going to be going 1 velocity. And so we know it's going to duplicate this exactly when it's going 1 velocity. So we know right here, okay, it's going to be going 1v. So here it is, 3/4 of the way down the track, it's going to go 1v. Not halfway, 3/4 of the way down the track. It's going to go 1v here, and it's going to do the same thing in 1 unit of time. So it's going to use 1 unit of time. So this experiment will be exactly the same as this experiment. And the fact is this is the odd man out part, right? And this is just the same thing Galileo said. This is just gravity upside down, right? In the first unit of time, you travel 4.9 meters, and you have a velocity of 9.8. In the second, you travel 3 units of time. That is, you travel 3 units of 4.9, okay? Because one of them is the 9.8 you got for free, the velocity you have, and one of them is just this again, another unit of force. And so that's all you have. There is no extra. You have 2 units of time, 2 units of force, 2 units of velocity. So again, it's the same thing, same argument. And the argument here is obvious, right? This is 1 unit of time, so you're only getting 9.8 over this huge area. So 9.8 for this huge area and 9.8 over this tiny area. So you can understand that 9.8 is basically a pressure, a force pushing down. So you're applying the same weight over this giant surface that you applied over this tiny surface. So obviously that's the factor that's changing. You're changing the amount of friction. The friction here is very small. Okay, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, 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 bigger. Simple explanation. It's only 2 units of time. There's only 2 units of heat, okay, in the ground. Not 4 units. You've only used 2 units of energy. The twice the velocity only had 2 units of energy. Yes, it went 4 times the distance. But it only went 4 times the distance because this whole part of its travel, it was losing energy per inch at a slower rate to the ground. It was vibrating the ground less because there wasn't enough pressure, enough weight pushing it into the surface for it to vibrate it more. So go ahead, Professor Dave, explain how anything I just said there is wrong. That I've falsely described the reality. Because again, it absolutely proves kinetic energy nonsense. Yes, it's 4 times the distance, but it's only twice the time. And gravity is a time-dependent force, and gravity is creating the friction. There's no friction without the gravity. The gravity is completely causing the friction. If there's less pressure per square inch, there's less friction per square inch. Prove me wrong. Reason an argument that proves me wrong in what I just said. Can we get these cowards to do that? It's just terrible. I mean, these are really fundamental. I mean, you can't get more fundamental to physics than getting energy right? I mean, there's matter and there's motion. So I mean, energy is the story of physics. And they have fundamentally broken that. Their axioms are wrong. Their elemental foundational bricks are made out of mud. They're garbage. They're not even mud. They're invisible styrofoam. They're obviously debatable. And it just can't be reasonably argued that they've settled the subject with some proof somewhere. There's no proof that this 4 times the distance means there was 4 times the work done. There's no evidence that the ground is 4 times hotter. So, let's see. 11 viewers. Yeah, it's just not very good. Yeah, so I've got to do better than that. There's a bunch of smiley faces popping out in my chat. What the fuck is that about? Ugh, crap. Yeah, scary. I hate this planet. Emoticons. One of the worst inventions ever. I mean, these are things that just destroy human communication. You know, Twitter, the Twitterverse. You know, let's do physics in 4-word sentences. It'll be fun. No, it won't be fun. Alright, so I've done a lot of subjects. It's probably enough of a video, I guess. If you're not going to participate, then there's not much to say. And, you know, I don't want to just... I can go on and on, really, but I should be getting simulation improvements soon. The drag simulation will be a good one. Because that's such a subject. I mean, I can't believe that I missed it, you know, in terms of it's just so obvious that I can't change the force by hitting it sooner. I can't change the volume of the force by pushing into it. Just can't happen because it's a speed of light interaction. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how fast the matter is going because it's speed of light force that's pushing it. So when it hits, it's always going to reflect at the speed of light. It can't reflect at any other speed. So it doesn't matter how fast the matter is going because the reflection's just going to be in that photonic form of something moving the speed of light. Can't move any other speed. So I can't create more energy by moving, and I can't change how many bits of force are on this side of me by moving into them. They're still going to, the same amount's going to hit me because the same amount's coming. I can't change the number by moving into them. And I can't change the number pushing me by moving away from them because they're going to show up and push me. It's just so obvious. You know. I mean, this was an argument back in, you know, Newton's day, frankly. And then it was an argument for Richard Feynman. So it's always been an argument against Lesage gravity. And it's just funny how simple the answer is. I mean, if you just accept the premise that it's not an ether, it's not some other thing, it's moving BBs. They have momentum. I can't change their momentum if I'm being pushed by exactly the same BBs. All I can do is reflect BBs. Anyway. Just... I mean, I would argue that, you know, that analysis is worth a Nobel Prize, you know, by itself. Just solving the drag subject is a huge solve. It's gigantic. It's huge. Okay? It's one of the minor things I've accomplished. It is just, it's such a weird position for me to be in, to be a completely discounted, disregarded, disrespected, complete loser. And I've done more better physics than anyone else in history. Assuming I'm right. I'm just saying I'm so fucking confident that I'm right because it works. It answers every fucking question much more completely with a much simpler machine, a much simpler mechanism. I win the Occam's razor thing by a mile. And it's a more complete explanation. So it's... I mean, who else has a simulation of charge? Nobody. Who else has a simulation of drag? Nobody. Yeah. So, yeah. It's just such a weird place I'm in as a human being. I mean, to live such a cruddy, awful life. And it's and you have this perception that, well, I sure as hell deserve better than that. But, as Clint Eastwood would say, deserve has nothing to do with it. I'm just another one of those tragically sad, pitiful, awful stories, where, somebody gets they're fighting to be an actor their whole life, and, 3 days after they get the big role, they get diagnosed with cancer, some kind of crap like that. It just sucks. But it is interesting how to deal with it as an ego issue, because your ego needs the social reinforcement. It needs the applause. It needs to see the acknowledgement in the other faces, kind of thing, for you to get it as a feeling. And so all I have is the knowledge that, yeah, but it doesn't matter, Gary. You did win. You just didn't get any of the medals or the prizes or the parties or any of that shit. But you did your job. You lived a good life and you accomplished something. I mean, you lived a hard life, but a productive one. So even though I had huge decades of waste in my life, I did okay. So it is a strange feeling. Especially considering, like I said, my life is not charming. I mean, just having Lyme disease last week, I mean, it's just, I do a tiny bit of yard work and I end up with Lyme disease again. I mean, just amazing. The bad luck of it. But I guess in other ways I'm lucky, so, okay, So anyway, it is just a weird... Not that I should have been able to anticipate how hard it would be to talk to people and because I was never made to do this job. I mean, there wasn't ever anything about me that was socially functional. I mean, I was always a social outcast. But just the idea that I thought doing the physics would be the hard part. And explaining and having people understand would be the easy part. I mean, that should be the easiest part. Oh, I have this idea that works. Please evaluate it and come up with some kind of rational argument debunking it. And you can't get that. And it's just that's the part that surprised me. I mean, it should be really easy to persuade people that this is a better explanation. It's better because it's right, accurate, and I didn't make it up, and I didn't talk about experiments that were never done, and I didn't use some, bullshit reasoning. I dealt with the facts. Again, the Eddington experiment. Oh, fuck. I mean, some physicists do know that the experiment is completely suspect. That they broke some slides accidentally, they just disappeared. This bullshit did happen. But some of them even know that Eddington wrote a journal, and his own journal pointed out that he only got 10% of the data quality. So he's doing this really difficult experiment, and he frankly he really didn't get any data that was useful. 10% is dismally bad. So you're talking about an image of stars. He suspected he should get 10,000 stars per glass slide, and he got 1,000. And he knew that because, they have to do the experiment, where they look at the same location in space. Well, what's the catch? From a different position, when the sun's not there. And so there's they're taking a picture, so they know how many stars they can get on a slide. So it's a huge degrade, 10%. 10%. And he says right in his own journal how everything went wrong. It was raining even logically you could understand. If it was raining 5 minutes before the eclipse, you can understand that the seeing has to be pretty bad, because there's a bunch of water molecules in the atmosphere, which are going to make it even worse. So besides the clouds and the other crap, you have a ton of moisture in the environment, which is just going to make your seeing shit. So all of that, and he says right in his journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. And everybody thinks it's a great experiment. Most credible, Einstein proven right, blah, blah, blah. And it's crap as an experiment. And that's their science. A crappy experiment never repeated outside the margin of error from Earth. So they never repeated the experiment. In all their efforts, it always goes wrong. Either the eclipse is too low on the horizon, which means more atmosphere, means bad seeing, or it rains or does something fucked up. And then when they had a perfect eclipse over North America, 12 noon, nobody did the experiment, amateur, with a little 3-inch telescope. Fuck that. Fuck that. Squared. Somebody pointed that out. Let's see. Before I go, do you think Dave recognizes you existence, or even Steve Mould? Well, of course he does. I actually talked to Dave, right? So, I did exchange email. Not emails, comments. And I tried to get him to give me a price. How much do I have to pay you? Come on. These are worthy subjects. And he just dismissed the whole thing and mocked it and said, $10,000 or whatever the number is he gave me. Yeah, that's it. So yes, he is aware of me. And he just doesn't care to respond because he's a coward. That's why I'm saying he's a pathetic coward and a weak coward. It's because he's a coward, a coward, a coward, a coward. He's afraid to have to interact with actual physicist type arguments. He'll only ridicule morons. He'll only mock retards. He'll only, for money, degrade and disparage people with mental illnesses. So, that's just disgusting. Yeah, it was $10,000 to play a 5-minute video. I think that was the arrangement I was making. Play a 5-minute video on your channel. How much do I have to pay you? But then none of them would give me the number. AB Science, I've asked them, and they won't give me a reasonable number. They always just mock it and say $100,000. Some kind of silly shit. It's a real thing, it's a real, there's got to be a number, right? Everybody has a price. There must be a number. Why don't you just give me something realistic? Advertisers aren't going to be paying you $10,000 for 5 minutes. Yeah, well, that's the question, right? I'm just saying, I don't think any price will do because they don't have an answer. He can't commit to a side, right? He can't agree with Steve Mould, but he can't disagree with him. He's got no choice. There's nothing, he can't save his physics. His physics loses credibility automatically. If If he says momentum is real and kinetic energy doesn't work, then he has to concede kinetic energy is probably a fable. And if he does the opposite, then he has to concede he's just a religious kook believing in absolute nonsense in spite of all the evidence pointing to the other direction. There's a ton of evidence showing conservation of momentum. There's scant evidence showing anything called conservation of kinetic energy, especially when you're using a different mass, when you're going from big masses to small and small masses to big. It's never conserved. I mean, if I could get another 200 or 300 views, that would help, just because then he couldn't make an excuse that I'm too obscure. Because then I'd be getting the same numbers as a flat earther. If I could generate a flat earth style audience. And that's the sad part, right? That talking reason and logic doesn't get you any audience, but talking batshit crazy nonsense does get you a fucking audience. And that's another sad tragedy here. There's plenty of kooks watching kookery, but there aren't too many reasonable channels with a reasonable audience. Just the very idea that there's no real forum. That somebody should be doing a credible science show where they actually do this, let's get the opposing arguments and bring them in and create the debates. And the fact that nobody's even thinking that's a thing. I mean, the one stupid channel, that demystify thing, it's all wooey crap, and they're mixing all kinds of subjects, so they're ruining the whole, there's no point because it's all over the place. It's just let's interview crazy people and make fun of them show. It's just another show to goof on goofy people. So anyway, I suppose the only good news is, right, if I got the argument 5 years ago, I wouldn't be nearly as prepared as I am now. Now it's all fit together. I got the gravity thing, I got the drag thing, I got the simulate, I got all this stuff. So I have so much more powerful an argument to make than I would have had 5 years ago. But the fact is, I should have been listened to 5 years ago, because I was all on the right tracks, and the premises were all correct. I just didn't have as good an evidence as I have now. But anyway, let's see. It's unfortunate you would have to make the number ludicrous, like $100,000 to get people to care. Well, whatever. It would be nice just if a channel raised that kind of money for some sort of better explanation for some theory, right? Like if there was a bounty to explain the double slit without Copenhagen or many worlds or any of that kind of crap, and they offered some prize for the best shot at it, even if it was $25,000, it would generate a lot of physics. And there's nothing generating physics. There's nothing encouraging people to do what I've done over the last 10 years. There's no payoff for it, right? I don't get anything for it. So there's no reward for spending 10 years of your life studying physics. I can honestly say that I don't think anybody could challenge the fact that I have watched more two-slit experiments than anybody on Earth. I've consumed every single one that I could find. I've spent hours listening to physics lectures. Professor Lewin, some of his videos I must have watched 20 or 30 times. And then there's a bunch of others, Leonard Susskind, and there's a couple other unknown college professors I like, Steve Young. I've spent literally hundreds of hours watching physics lectures. And, there's no payoff for it. It's a little tedious and unpleasant, some of it, because it is mathematical and bullshitty, and you have to get through, you have to figure out where they're fucking with something. When they say per second, you say, whoops, what do you mean per second? Why are you saying that? I'm not going 60 miles an hour per hour. Why does nobody say 60? I'm going 60 miles an hour per hour. Yeah, I know it's per hour. You don't have to tell me it's per hour. I already know that. Well, why are you saying it? Yeah. They have to figure out all of the gimmicks and the chicanery and the smoke and the mirrors. You have to get rid of all the smoke and all the mirrors and figure out what the core facts are. And the core fact is ballistic pendulums never collect anything more than the momentum, ever. Not even 1% of the kinetic energy extra. Only the momentum. How come? How come we can't make an exchange device that actually collects the kinetic energy? How come there's no exchange device, including a spaceship, that can collect any of the kinetic energy, the stuff beyond the momentum? Any kinetic energy beyond the momentum. Ever. In no experimental device can you actually collect the kinetic energy. That's the physical reality. That's the evidence reality. And I have to sit here and argue that physics. I have to point out how, that might be wrong. Might be? Yeah, there's no evidence, but it only might be wrong. They won't even concede it might be wrong. There's no evidence, and they won't even concede it might be wrong. The theory might be wrong. That's the position I'm in. And these assholes are keeping me in that position on purpose. Because they're fucking cowards. Ballless, shit-talking, money-grubbing cowards. They're whoring science. They're fucking science. They're not giving a damn about it. They have no care or love or admiration for the process, for the ambition of the human mind to understand. None of that matters. All that matters is, give me my big income so I can afford to keep my trophy wife. And that's it. And my swimming pool. Disgusting. Disgusting. Yeah. Alright, so I guess that's enough. I just wish there was more of an audience. It just is disappointing that just can't generate an audience. So anyway, till the next time. YouTube just won't let it happen. Yeah. So, I guess we'll call it a video. So, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Thank you for another fantastic video. Great catching you live. Love you, Gary. Well, that's, I don't know if I care for that love word, but admire, respect. Yeah. Maybe those would be better words, but it doesn't matter. I'll take the love thing. Me. A little creepy, but I'll take it. Alright, anyway, so, till the next time, and such, and so forth, and the whatnot. I'm going to hit the button now. And, happy trails, blah, blah, blah.